So welcome everyone to the 16th exhibition of Stupid People. Before we jump into the rather interesting subject at hand, I want to update on a subject from the rip-roaring, not even slightly a success, previous exhibition of Stupid People, where I talked about Gay Jesus on Netflix from a comedy, air quotes, comedy group called Porta dos Fundos. Now I have been informed they are not remotely funny in the slightest. I think the very idea of the first temptation of Christ being homosexuality to be quite amusing on the face of it. However, a judge in Rio de Janeiro has decided that it needs to be removed from the streaming service. Now, I don't know if they have jurisdiction on the global stage, but I would assume based on its views it's more than likely only a hit in Brazil, but it will more than likely still exist anywhere else. Moving on, because I don't want to dawdle on that. This is Brandon Kirby. As you can tell from the orange jumpsuit, this is in fact a mugshot. Brandon Kirby has a bit of an issue with the slightly underrated meth, and he's been in a bit of trouble recently because he decided to do what I would consider to be utterly insane. There is obviously a serious edge to it, but because of how it ended, I think we can laugh at it slightly, where he has decided to take a leisurely journey, car ride in fact, in someone else's car with that person in question in fact, and that person's pet goat, who he decided in his infinite wisdom, Brandon Kirby that is, to kidnap from outside an adult movie store. I'm almost certain some of you are thinking, this must be in Florida. No, it was in Missouri. Yeah. This happened 2 days into the new year, and already we have contender for crime of the decade. Astonishing. Now, the full context of this incident is, two men and their goat went to the adult movie store. One man went into the adult movie store and the other one fell asleep in the back of the truck with the pet goat. The truck was then carjacked by Brandon Kirby. And Brandon Kirby decided to make sure that he was still there and not going to make a noise. He put a pew-pew thing on his temple, a water pistol with bullets in. Mr. Kirby decided to take this car, this truck even, across 3 states, Missouri, Kansas and Oklahoma, while doing meth and pistol whipping his passenger. Eventually, Brandon Kirby did let the man and his goat out of the truck in Creek County, Oklahoma, where that man then went on to call the police. They were able, because the truck has OnStar service, to track it and slow it down to about 15 miles per hour, with troopers then able, once they caught up with it, to ram the vehicle into a ditch. Kirby then decided, oh, I'd better run away, because they won't catch me. Yeah, he was caught pretty quick. I'm assuming the reason they caught him so fast wasn't because of the speed of the police officers, but because when Brandon Kirby got out of the truck, he decided to chase his own tail. You might think this is a Halls of Injustice thing. No, this is just something I found to be incredibly funny from a really serious event, and I want to put Brandon Kirby on blast for being an absolute muppet. Next, I guess we should address what happened at the Golden Globes and the fallout from it, because honestly the salt mines that flowed from that, oh dear lord. It was truly astonishing to me just how butthurt some people got when jokes were finally aimed at them. And I'm going to quote Ricky Gervais now with what he said long after the fallout had all sort of started to die down a little. Okay, it hadn't in the slightest, but this is poignant. Please stop saying you can't joke about anything anymore. You can. You can joke about whatever the f*** you like. And some people won't like it and they will tell you they don't like it. And then it's up to you whether you give a f or not. And so on. It's a good system. This is a direct reference to the fact that many say that the window of what you can and cannot say is shrinking. There is actually a point to that. But in reality, you can still say the jokes that are on the outside of that window. It's just a lot of those other people find it undesirable to say those jokes anymore. I personally think any joke should be said regardless of who it's aimed at. So what did happen at the Golden Globes? Well, for 8 minutes, Ricky Gervais decided to absolutely hammer Hollywood. And I'm going to read through some of the more impressive remarks he made because I can't play the video without getting a copyright strike. The first one, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for in China, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? Yeah, those same people who actually promote all 3 of those major services or have in fact worked for them. Unironically, for companies that have also got a bit of a track record for bad treatment of employees in respective countries that they work in. Amazon in the States, Apple in China, and Disney. They just exist. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, nearly 3 hours long. Leonardo DiCaprio attended the premiere, and by the end, his date was too old for him. Even Prince Andrew is like, come on Leo, mate. Nice. I came in a limo tonight, and the license plate was made by Felicity Huffman, a reference to the fact she's at community service for doing some naughty things when it came to education. The next one's a tad edgy, so if you are at all easily offended, and that should be no one, look away now. Afterlife is a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife died of cancer, and it's still more fun than this. Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so he didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. I know he's your friend, I don't care. Another direct shot at the fact that Epstein had connections. Bird Box is a movie where people survive by acting like they don't see a thing. Sort of like working for Harvey Weinstein. Yep. It was a big year for paedophile movies. Surviving R. Kelly, Leaving Netherland, 2 popes. And the final one I'm going to read, the one that more than likely triggered people the most. You are in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. Ooh, we can't take shots at our climate change messiah. As a direct consequence for all of these quotes, yes, Ricky Gervais is now apparently a right-winger. Somebody who I believe has on many occasions said he's pretty liberal. But then what is liberal and how liberal you are, one must be purity tested to make sure you are the right kind of liberal. And you can't make jokes like these, Ricky. That's just bad. You should be ashamed of yourself. Now, I am going to be clear. It's not Ricky that I'm placing in the exhibition of stupid people, because everything he said was right. I'm going to link the full thing in the description below, so you can go and watch it. It is incredibly funny. But the backlash is, we must now cancel Ricky Gervais. I don't agree with cancel culture, even if you were to use it for some kind of mock, but if we were to agree to these terms, who do you think should be cancelled? No. Ricky should not be cancelled for speaking his mind. Oddly enough, he's funnier when he's just speaking his mind than he is when he's doing scripts for TV. I didn't find The Office funny in the slightest, but his stand-up is fantastic. And whenever he's hosted these kind of events, there's always been controversy, because he's always pushed and pushed and pushed. This is mostly aimed at those he took the shots at, because everything he said, while deemed a joke, had mostly truths written in it, which is a damning statement for the state of Hollywood, when the only person with a clear conscience is a shit Sith Lord. Next, I want to go back a bit, because some of you may remember this. It's what you should be calling minty fresh natural selection, with a decent ppm count. I mention all of this because it's again flared up in the United Kingdom. What on earth are people doing, none of you are asking? Well, I'm glad none of you asked. People are using toothpaste as a replacement to a natural lubricant, because when in a pinch and parched, one must always reach for Aquafresh. Oh. I've got control of this, I promise. Now, a Reddit user earlier this week revealed that he had tried this and been left in agony. I can't imagine why. The unnamed person, yes, the Sun very kindly didn't bother to name and shame the user, penned a somewhat graphic post explaining how he had used it to crack one off. with this gentleman, this unfortunate soul, indicating that it hurt when he moved his legs, and that when he went to use the toilet, he saw some discoloration, with it being red and raw, and some of the skin beginning to scab. One has to wonder, was it refreshing? Or better yet, was it worth it? And I must ask, after you used the toothpaste on your shaft, did you use mouthwash afterwards? Yeah. For quite some time, this has been going on. Many experts have said, don't do it, please. If you really need to, use washing up liquid. Or better yet, because this serves two functions then, use soap. Or, better yet, how about you go for the posh version and use a Johnny? Okay. If you apply toothpaste to areas of skin, including those around your genital, there is a high risk of chemical burns, the stinging of which will last several days. Understandably, discoloration and scabs are going to occur. You've given yourself a chemical burn. You've taken something meant for oral use and used it on your genitals, something they are not designed for. When I earlier said minty fresh natural selection, I was right. Why don't you just go and invest in a silicone or water-based lubricant product? If only I could think of one that could be used, that is affordable and easily available to all. In fact, you could buy this in Poundland. So when you do decide to crack one off, you are safe and you won't get the friction burn instead of the chemical burn. Although I would say, don't use Vaseline during intercourse, please. That is a somewhat high risk for infection, so please don't do that. Bacteria transferring over and all. Moving on. Our final story comes from New York City, courtesy of Mayor Bill de Blasio, who around the time of mid-August last year appointed a number of people who became a board called the School Diversity Advisory Group. They were commissioned in dealing with certain discrepancies. Those discrepancies and disparities came down to race, a lot of it did. And one of the issues that stood out the most was the Gifted and Talented program that basically took children who would then sit a test, the Specialized High School Admissions Test, the SHSAT, which if they passed would allow them to go to an elite public high school. Well, the School Diversity Advisory Group decided in their infinite wisdom to advise Mayor Bill de Blasio to remove it because, and this isn't a joke, the majority of those that passed the test were white and Asian, and because of the percentage of those that were black not being represented in this, it was therefore creating classroom segregation. Now, I tend to take the view with education, and it's quite a simple view. If the opportunity arises where I can do better than someone else, I'm going to take it. I remember being in year 3 and having to wait for everyone to catch up with me. I remember the same thing in year 6. I remember the same thing in year 9. I found it infuriating, having to sit there and sit in silence while others tried to keep up or catch up, and therefore I was wasting my time. Many parents understandably saw the SHSATs as a chance to give students a better education, something I can totally respect. So when the School Diversity Advisory Group seek to have it removed, understandably they're going to be annoyed. 70% of the student body at city public schools, black and Hispanic students, are disproportionately underrepresented in gifted and talented programs, with 75% of students admitted being white or Asian. This is the claim. As far as I'm concerned, if they're not passing the test, that doesn't mean it's because of their race, although I'm sure there's going to be a race realist all over that. It is entirely because they just weren't good enough. In fact, the arbitrary factor of their race should play no factor at all. Everyone had the same opportunity, and unfortunately, a larger number of white or Asian students passed. Now, a month later, after introducing this and approving it, de Blasio actually said our plan didn't work. with him indicating there was some openness to keeping the SHSATs open, to keep the exam anyway. Well, let's skip ahead to, well, now, and a school, a primary school, elementary school, I believe you call them over there, in Brooklyn is actually ditching it, because, and I quote, it benefited white and Asian students more than others. What we should do because of something as pointless as race is punish somebody because of their race. Classy. Nothing screams of inclusion, equality and diversity more than forcing someone who's doing really well to wait for everyone else to catch up because of something they could not control, like the colour of their skin. Anyway, as with all subjects I cover in these videos, I am very interested to know what you think about them. I know this video is a lot later than usual, I do apologise. I was a tad busy today. There will be a Halls of Injustice tomorrow, and there is a new video on Moistky Live. I hope you'll have a fantastic Thursday evening or Friday morning, and thank you all for listening.